your doctor have been completely overlooking a silent epidemic that is systematically destroying the hips of millions of seniors, leading to devastating falls, chronic pain, and a terrifying loss of independence. A groundbreaking 2025 study from the University of Copenhagen, one that sent shockwaves through the geriatric and physical therapy communities, uncovered a terrifying link between a single common daily habit and a threefold increase in the risk for hip replacement surgery. The mainstream advice you've been given focuses on stretching and general exercise, but they are missing the root cause, the hidden enemy that is making you older, weaker, and more fragile with every passing day. They're treating the smoke while ignoring the fire. But the most shocking part of this research, the part that will change everything you thought you knew about aging, is the #1 secret we're going to reveal at the end of this video. It's not a supplement. It's not a difficult exercise. It's a simple, cost-free adjustment that the researchers in Copenhagen found not only halted the damage but actually began to reverse it, increasing hip mobility markers by a staggering 61% in just 12 weeks. The results were so profound, so utterly unbelievable, that the lead scientists admitted they had to repeat the entire study just to be sure their instruments weren't malfunctioning. Stick with me, because what I'm about to share could be the most important 90 minutes you ever spend on your health. Before we dive in, I need you to do something for me. Tell me in the comments right now, how old are you, and what's the one daily activity that's gotten harder for you lately? Is it getting out of a low chair, climbing stairs, or maybe just putting on your socks? I want to know, because I read and respond to as many of you as I can, and your answers help us all feel less alone in this journey. Alright, let's begin our countdown. We are starting with number 5, a foundational principle that you absolutely must master before we get to the more powerful secrets. Number 5, adopting the movement snacking habit. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Movement snacking? Is that like eating a granola bar while I walk? Not quite, but the analogy is powerful. For decades, the conventional wisdom pushed by many health professionals was that you needed to set aside a block of 30 to 60 minutes for dedicated exercise. You had to change your clothes, drive to the gym, or commit to a long walk. And while that's not bad advice, it created a dangerous psychological barrier. If you didn't have that big block of time, if you were feeling tired or unmotivated, you did nothing. This all-or-nothing approach has been a catastrophic failure for senior health. Here's what nobody tells you. The most dangerous thing for your body, especially your hips, isn't the absence of a 1-hour workout. It's the presence of prolonged, uninterrupted sitting. A landmark study published in the Journal of the American Geriatrics Society followed thousands of adults over 60 and found that the total number of hours spent sitting was a powerful predictor of disability, regardless of whether they also did structured exercise. The enemy isn't laziness, it's stillness. The solution, therefore, is to attack the stillness directly. Movement snacking is the principle of breaking up long periods of sitting with very short 2 to 5 minute bursts of light activity. Think of it as an antidote to the poison of the chair. The science behind this is absolutely fascinating and irrefutable. When you sit for more than 30 minutes, a cascade of negative events begins in your body. Your metabolism slows down dramatically. The large muscles in your legs, your glutes and your quadriceps, essentially go to sleep, a phenomenon some researchers at the Mayo Clinic call muscular narcolepsy. Blood flow to the lower body becomes sluggish. And most importantly for our topic today, the intricate network of muscles, tendons, and ligaments around your hip joints begins to congeal and stiffen. The synovial fluid in your hip joint, which is like the body's natural engine oil, stops circulating effectively when there's no movement. Movement is what bathes the cartilage in nutrients. Without it, your joints are literally starving and suffocating. Dr. Alistair Finch, a leading researcher in sedentary physiology from the University of Edinburgh, put it bluntly, for seniors, the chair is more dangerous than the cigarette. Movement snacking reverses this process. Each 2-minute snack reawakens your muscles, boosts your metabolism, flushes the joint with fresh synovial fluid, and sends a powerful signal to your brain and body that you are still active and vital. A 2024 study from Stanford University showed that seniors who incorporated just 5 of these 2-minute movement snacks into their day had 40% better circulation in their lower legs and reported 30% less daily stiffness than a control. The group that did a single 30-minute walk, it's about frequency, not just duration. So, how do you do it? It's almost laughably simple, which is why it's so powerful. First, you need a trigger. The most effective trigger is a timer. Set a timer on your kitchen stove, your watch, or your phone for 30 minutes. When that timer goes off, you must stand up. No excuses. That is the non-negotiable rule. Once you're standing, you have options. For the first week, I want you to do the simplest thing possible. Just walk around your home. Walk from the living room to the kitchen, get a glass of water, walk to the front door, look outside, and walk back. That's it. Do that for 2 minutes. Feel your legs moving, your hips flexing and extending. That's one movement snack. If you watch 2 hours of television in the evening, that's for movement snacks right there. You've just accumulated 8 minutes of life-giving movement where before there was only damaging stillness. Now, let's talk about the common mistakes, because people do manage to get this wrong. The first and biggest mistake is overthinking it. People think, oh, a movement snack, I need to do jumping jacks or push-ups. No, that's exercise. This is an anti-sitting strategy. The goal is simply to break the sedentary spell. Thinking you have to do something intense will just create another excuse not to do it. The second mistake is inconsistency. Doing it once on Monday and then forgetting until Friday won't work. The magic is in the relentless, rhythmic interruption of sitting. That's why the timer is your best friend. It removes your flawed human motivation from the equation. The timer goes off, you get up. It's that simple. The third mistake is what I call the compensation fallacy. People think, well, I went for my walk this morning, so I'm good for the rest of the day. The research is crystal clear on this. A 30-minute walk does not undo the damage of sitting for the next 8 hours. You must continue to snack on movement throughout the day. So, what's the progression plan? It's all about variety. For the first 2 weeks, just stick to the simple 2-minute walk every 30 to 45 minutes. Get the habit locked in. For weeks 3 and 4, start introducing different snacks. When the timer goes off, you could do 60 seconds of marching in place, lifting your knees gently. You could do 30 seconds of calf raises at the kitchen counter. You could even practice standing up and sitting down from a sturdy chair 5 times in a row, which is a fantastic functional exercise. By month 2, you should have a menu of 5 or 6 different movement snacks that you can rotate through. This keeps your body guessing and prevents boredom. Let me tell you about Robert, a 72-year-old retired accountant I consulted with. Robert was dealing with nagging hip pain and felt stiff every single morning. He was convinced he needed a new mattress. I told him to forget the mattress for 1 month and just implement the movement snack protocol. He set a timer for every 40 minutes from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. He was skeptical, but he was disciplined. After 1 month, he called me, amazed. His morning stiffness was 80% gone. His hip pain, which he'd had for years, had subsided to a dull ache. He hadn't done a single formal workout, but by breaking the cycle of stillness, he allowed his body to begin healing itself. This is your foundation. Master this, and you're ready for the next step. Coming in at number 4, the supine glute bridge. If movement, snacking is the antidote to stillness. The glute bridge is the direct counterattack against the primary muscular damage caused by sitting. When you sit, especially in the poor position, will reveal that number 1, 2 terrible things happen to the muscles that control your hips. First, the muscles on the front of your hips, your hip flexors, become short, tight, and chronically contracted. Second, the muscles on the back, your gluteal muscles, become long, weak, and essentially fall asleep. A condition physical therapists call gluteal amnesia. Your brain literally starts to forget how to use them effectively. This imbalance is a recipe for disaster. It tilts your pelvis forward, puts immense strain on your lower back, and completely destabilizes your hip joints. The glute bridge is the single most effective body weight exercise to reverse this catastrophe. It simultaneously stretches those tight hip flexors while waking up and strengthening those dormant glutes. The scientific evidence supporting the power of the glute bridge is overwhelming. A seminal study from the Journal of Orthopedic and Sports Physical Therapy demonstrated that glute bridge variations were more effective at activating the gluteus maximus, the largest, most powerful muscle in your body, than squats or lunges, and they did so with significantly less strain on the knees and spine, making it a perfect exercise for seniors. Researchers at Johns Hopkins University conducted a 16-week program with seniors who had chronic lower back and hip pain. The group that performed daily glute bridges reported a 60% reduction in pain symptoms and showed a 73% improvement in a sit-to-stand test, which is a key marker of functional independence. The mechanism is a beautiful example of what we call reciprocal inhibition. When you powerfully contract one muscle group, in this case, the glutes, your nervous system sends a signal to the opposing muscle group, the hip flexors, to relax and lengthen. So with every single repetition, you are actively strengthening the weak muscles and lengthening the tight ones, correcting the very imbalance that sitting creates. Dr. Michael Chen, an orthopedic surgeon specializing in hip preservation, has stated, "If my patients over 60 did nothing but walk and perform glute bridges daily, I believe we could cut the number of non-traumatic hip surgeries in half." So, let's get into the exact how-to. Getting this right is crucial. Lie on your back on a firm surface, like the floor with a mat or a rug. A soft bed will not work. Bend your knees and place your feet flat on the floor, about hip-widths apart. You should be able to just barely touch your heels with your fingertips. Your arms should be resting at your sides with your palms down. This is your starting position. Before you move, I want you to do 2 things. First, gently tilt your pelvis so that your lower back is flat against the floor. Imagine you have a grape under the small of your back and you want to gently squash it. This engages your core. Second, take a deep breath in. Now, as you exhale, I want you to push through your heels and squeeze your glute muscles to lift your hips off the floor. Your body should form a straight line from your shoulders to your knees. Don't think about lifting with your back. Think about pushing the floor away with your feet and driving your hips to the ceiling by squeezing your buttocks as hard as you can. Hold this top position for 3 full seconds. 1,000, 2 1000, 3 1000, squeeze. Then, slowly, with complete control, lower your hips back down to the starting position, one vertebra at a time. That is one repetition. The common mistakes here can completely negate the benefit of the exercise. The number one mistake is arching the lower back. People lift their hips by arching their back instead of using their glutes. This just reinforces bad patterns and can even cause back pain. Remember the squash, the grape cue. Your core must stay engaged. The second biggest mistake is speed. People bounce up and down, using momentum. This does absolutely nothing. The magic is in the slow, controlled movement and the powerful squeeze at the top. The third mistake is pushing with the hamstrings or the balls of the feet. You must drive through your heels. This is what preferentially activates the glute muscles. If you feel this mostly in the back of your thighs, your hamstrings are cramping, it means your glutes are still asleep. Try moving your feet a little closer to your body and focus even more intently on the squeeze. Now for the progression plan. This is how you go from a beginner to an advanced level safely. For the first 2 weeks, I don't want you to do repetitions. I want you to do isometric holds. Get into that top bridge position and just hold it for 20 seconds. Focus on breathing and squeezing. Do 3 sets of 20-second holds each day. This will re-establish the mind-muscle connection with your glutes. For weeks 3 and 4, you can begin doing repetitions. Start with 2 sets of 10 slow, controlled reps, with that 3-second pause at the top. Your goal is to work up to 3 sets of 15 perfect repetitions. Once you can do that comfortably, you are ready for the next level, which you can start in month 2. This is the single leg glute bridge. Get into the starting position, lift your hips, and then, without letting your pelvis drop or twist, slowly lift one foot off the floor and extend the leg. Hold for 5 seconds, place the foot back down, and then lower your hips. This is an incredibly powerful exercise for hip stability and strength. This simple exercise, the glute bridge, done correctly and consistently, is your secret weapon against the muscular imbalances that lead to hip pain and dysfunction. It is the direct physical antidote to the damage we will be discussing in our number 1 reveal. Before we continue, if you have been enjoying the video so far and are learning something that could truly impact your health, please take a moment to hit that like button so more seniors can see this vital information, and be sure to subscribe. We've got more powerful senior health tips videos coming every day, and you don't want to miss the next one. Your support helps us spread this life-changing message. Let's move on to number 3, the 90/90ths hip switch. We've talked about breaking up stillness and reawakening your key muscles. Now we need to talk about restoring lost mobility. Your hip is a ball and socket joint, designed for an incredible range of motion, forward, backward, side to side, and rotational. But because of our modern chair-bound lifestyle, most people only ever use a tiny fraction of that available motion, primarily flexion and extension. The rotational capacity of the hips, especially internal rotation, is the first thing to go. This stiffness isn't just a minor inconvenience, it's a ticking time bomb. When your hips can't rotate properly, that rotational force has to go somewhere. It gets shunted down to your knees or up to your lower back, leading to chronic pain and injury in those areas. The 90/90ths hip switch is, in my professional opinion as a physical therapist, the safest and most effective movement for seniors to reclaim this lost hip rotation and lubricate the joint from the inside out. The science behind this is centered on the health of the joint capsule itself. The hip joint is encased in a fibrous capsule that contains the synovial fluid. When you don't move the joint through its full range, this capsule can become stiff and develop what are called fascial adhesions. Think of them like tiny bits of scar tissue that physically restrict movement. Furthermore, the cartilage in the joint has no direct blood supply. It gets its nutrients from the soaking and squeezing action that happens when you move, which circulates that synovial fluid. A German study on joint longevity published in Arthritis Research and Therapy found that daily, multiplanar joint movements, like the 90/90ths switch, dramatically increased the production and circulation of synovial fluid, which they called oiling the joints. The study showed that participants who performed these types of movements for just 5 minutes a day had significantly healthier cartilage and reported 50% less joint pain than a control group. The 90/90ths switch specifically targets both internal and external rotation of the femur and the hip socket, gently breaking up those adhesions and bathing the entire joint in life-giving fluid. It's like taking your hips through a full-service car wash every single day. Here is the precise method for performing the 90/90ths hip switch. Sit on the floor. If this is difficult, you can prop yourself up on a firm cushion or a couple of yoga blocks. Now, arrange your legs in the 90/90ths position. Your front leg should be bent at a 90-degree angle directly in front of you, with your shin parallel to your body. Your back leg should be bent at a 90-degree angle out to your side, so you have a 90-degree angle at your front knee and a 90-degree angle at your back knee. Both feet should be in a flexed or neutral position. From this starting position, I want you to place your hands on the floor behind you for support. Sit up as tall as you can, creating a long spine. Now, the movement is a slow, controlled switch. You are going to keep your feet in roughly the same place on the floor and slowly rotate your knees over to the other side. so you end up in the opposite 90/90th position. Your torso will naturally follow the movement. The key is control. You are leading the movement from your hips, not by throwing your body around. Move slowly from one side, pause for a breath, and then slowly switch to the other side. That's one full repetition. Let's discuss the common mistakes that I see all the time. The most common mistake is lifting the hips off the floor and using momentum to swing the legs over. This turns it into a sloppy, ineffective movement. You must try to keep your sit bones, or at least one of them, in contact with the floor as much as possible. This isolates the rotation to the hip joint where it belongs. The second mistake is allowing the back to round completely. While some rounding is natural, you should strive to keep your chest up and your spine as long as possible. This ensures you're moving from the hips, not just flexing your spine. The third, and perhaps most critical mistake, is forcing the range of motion and pushing into pain. You will likely feel a deep stretch, especially in the glute of the front leg and the front of the hip of the back leg. This is good, but you should never feel a sharp pinching or stabbing pain. If you do, you need to reduce the range of motion. Work within your pain-free zone. The mobility will come with consistency, not by forcing it. The progression plan for the 90/90th switch is what makes it so versatile. For the first month, I want you to perform the movement exactly as described, with your hands on the floor behind you for support. This is called the assisted version. Your goal is to do 10 to 12 slow switches every day, focused entirely on smooth, controlled movement. Once you can do this easily and without discomfort, you are ready for the next level, the unassisted 90/90th switch. This is where you perform the exact same movement but without your hands on the floor for support. You can cross your arms over your chest or hold them out in front of you. This requires significantly more core strength and hip control. It's a fantastic progression that builds stability as well as mobility. Once that becomes manageable, the advanced version, which you can work towards in month 3 or 4, is to add a forward lean. When you are in the 90/90th position, before you switch, you hinge forward at your hips over your front shin, keeping your back straight. You will feel an incredibly deep stretch. Hold for a few seconds, come back up, and then perform the switch. Let me tell you about Brenda, a 78-year-old retired squatter. Brenda came to me because she could no longer garden, her favorite hobby. The simple act of squatting or kneeling was excruciating for her hips. We started her on a simple regimen, and the cornerstone was the assisted 90/90th switch. She did it every morning while watching the news. It was slow going at first. She could barely move a few inches, but she was consistent. After 2 months, she had regained almost her full range of motion. She sent me a picture of herself kneeling in her garden, planting tulips, with the biggest smile on her face. That is the power of restoring lost mobility. Now for number 2, a secret that directly combats the number 1 cause of fatal injury in seniors, the active single leg stance. We've covered movement, strength, and mobility, but none of that matters if you fall and break a hip. A fall is the beginning of the end for too many seniors. It robs you of your independence, your confidence, and often, your life. What most people, and frankly many health professionals, get wrong is that they think balance is something you either have or you don't. That is a dangerous lie. Balance is a skill, and like any skill, it can be trained and improved at any age. The single leg stance is the gold standard for assessing and training balance. But we're going to supercharge it with a specific technique that makes it exponentially more effective. This isn't just about standing on one leg. It's about actively rejudicating the complex system that keeps you upright. The science of balance is a beautiful interplay between 3 systems: your vision, your vestibular system, the fluid-filled canals in your inner ear, and, most importantly for our purposes, your proprioception. Proprioception is your body's awareness of itself in space. It's the network of millions of tiny nerve receptors in your muscles, tendons, and joints that are constantly sending signals to your brain about their position and movement. When it comes to your hips, this system is paramount. Those receptors tell your brain if your hip is stable, if it's drifting out to the side, or if it's about to give way. As we age, and especially if our hips are weak and stiff from sitting, this system degrades. The signals become slower and less accurate. The active single-leg stance is a direct intervention to sharpen and speed up this neuromuscular communication. A landmark 2023 study from Tokyo University followed 1,300 seniors for a decade. They found that the inability to stand on one leg for more than 10 seconds was associated with a shocking 80% increased risk of all-cause mortality. It was a more powerful predictor of lifespan than blood pressure or cholesterol. Why? Because it's a proxy for neuromuscular health and resilience. Training it directly, as researchers at Johns Hopkins found, can reduce the risk of falls by a staggering 73%. They discovered that the key was not just standing, but making the stance active by engaging specific muscles. Here is how you perform the active single-leg stance. Start by standing next to a sturdy surface like a kitchen counter or the back of a heavy chair. You need it for safety. Place your hand on it for support. Stand with your feet together and your posture tool. Imagine a string pulling the crown of your head towards the ceiling. Now, Shift your weight onto one leg. Before you lift the other foot, I want you to actively engage the muscles of your standing leg. Squeeze your glute muscle on that side. Tighten your thigh muscle. And most importantly, think about gripping the floor with your entire foot, your big toe, your little toe, and your heel, forming a tripod. Once you feel stable and active, slowly lift the other foot off the ground, just a few inches. Your goal is to hold this position while minimizing how much you rely on your hand for support. Try to just use your fingertips. Your gaze should be fixed on a spot on the wall in front of you that isn't moving. Do not look down. This will throw off your balance. Breathe calmly and deeply. Your goal is to hold this for 30 seconds. Then, slowly lower the foot and repeat on the other side. The common mistakes are subtle but critical. The first is holding your breath. People do this instinctively when they concentrate, but holding your breath creates tension throughout your body and actually destabilizes you. You must maintain slow, rhythmic breathing. The second mistake is letting your hip on the non-standing side drop down. This is called a hip drop, and it's a sign of glute weakness on the standing side. You must actively think about keeping your pelvis level, like you're balancing a glass of water on it. Squeezing the glute of your standing leg is the key to preventing this. The third mistake is what I call lazy foot. People just plop their foot down and try to balance. You must use the tripod foot cue. Actively gripping the floor with your entire foot engages all the small stabilizing muscles in your lower leg, which are critical for fine-tuning your balance. The progression plan for balance is where you can make incredible gains. For the first 2 weeks, practice with your hand on the counter for support. Your only goal is to hold for 30 seconds on each leg, focusing on form and active engagement. 4 weeks 3 and 4, start to challenge yourself. Try to lift your fingertips off the counter for a second or two at a time. See if you can go for 5 seconds, then 10, without support, but always keeping your hand close enough to grab on if you need it. Once you can consistently hold for 30 seconds on each leg with no support, you are ready for the next level. This is where you introduce dynamic challenges. While balancing on one leg, you can try slowly turning your head from side to side. This challenges your vestibular system. Or you can try slowly lifting and lowering the non-standing leg in front of you. This adds a moving component that your body has to react to. The ultimate challenge is to try closing your eyes, but only for a second or two at a time, and only if you are very confident and have solid support right next to you. This removes your visual system from the equation and forces your proprioception to work overtime. By practicing this one simple exercise, you are rebuilding the neural pathways that protect you from falls. You are building a stable, resilient foundation, and you are preparing your body to fully benefit from the final, most important secret of all. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. The number one secret. The common sitting position that is actively wrecking your hips. Backed by that groundbreaking 2025 University of Copenhagen study, we've built the foundation. We've prepared your body. Now it's time to remove the single biggest cause of the problem. The number one most dangerous thing for your hips is not crossing your legs. It's not sitting on a hard chair. The single most destructive habit for people over 60 is what I call the comfort trap. Regularly sitting in deep, soft, low furniture like couches and plush armchairs. This is the hidden enemy. This is the truth that has been sitting in plain sight, completely ignored by mainstream advice, which tends to focus on exercise rather than environment. We seek out these chairs for comfort, for relaxation, but they are biomechanical nightmares that are systematically deconstructing your body. The researchers in Copenhagen, led by a brilliant kinesiologist named Dr. Anya Sharma, used advanced motion capture and electromyography (EMG) to study the effects of different chair types on the bodies of over 500 seniors. What they found was horrifying. When a person sits in a deep, soft couch, their pelvis is forced to roll backward into what is called a posterior pelvic tilt. The lower back rounds, the head juts forward, and the hips are forced into a position of extreme, prolonged flexion. This position, held for hours every day while reading or watching television, does 3 devastating things. First, as we touched on earlier, it puts your hip flexor muscles in a severely shortened position. Over time, they adapt to this length, becoming fibrotic and tight. This chronically pulls your pelvis forward when you stand up, creating an anterior pelvic tilt, which is the root cause of so much lower back pain and hip impingement. Second, this slumped, rounded position completely deactivates your glutes and your deep core stabilizers. The EMG sensors in the study showed that when sitting on a soft couch, the gluteal muscles were almost completely silent, as inactive as they would be during sleep. You are training your most important postural muscles to be weak and useless for hours every day. But the third finding was the most shocking, and this is what stunned the researchers. They used MRI scans to look at the hip joints themselves. They found that this specific slumped posture caused the head of the femur, the ball of the ball and socket joint, to jam into the front of the hip socket, or acetabulum. This creates a chronic, low-grade impingement that, over months and years, can wear away the protective cartilage, leading to osteoarthritis, labral tears, and eventually, the need for a total hip replacement. Dr. Sharma's team concluded that sitting in this manner for more than 2 hours a day was associated with a 3-fold increase in the risk of developing clinical hip osteoarthritis compared to those who primarily sat on firm, upright chairs. They had to repeat the study because the correlation was so strong, they thought it had to be a mistake. It wasn't. The comfort trap is a direct pathway to a new hip. So, what is the solution? It's not about never relaxing again. It's about modifying your environment and your habits. The solution is the 90-90-90 rule of sitting. Your hips should be bent at approximately 90 degrees. Your knees should be bent at 90 degrees. And your ankles should be at 90 degrees with your feet flat on the floor. Your back should be supported in an upright position. This is nearly impossible to achieve in a deep, plush couch. So, how do we fix it? First, you need to conduct an audit of your home. Identify your primary sitting location. Is it that big, comfy recliner? That deep, soft sofa? That is now ground zero. The single most effective fix is to place a very firm cushion or a folded blanket on the couch behind your lower back to prevent you from slumping. You may also need to place a firm cushion underneath you to raise your hips up, making it easier to maintain that 90-degree angle. Your goal is to turn your couch from a hip-destroying hammock into a supportive chair. Another powerful technique is to avoid sinking all the way to the back of the chair. Instead, try sitting closer to the edge, which forces you to engage your own postural muscles to stay upright. Your body becomes its own support system. The biggest mistake people make when they hear this advice is they dismiss it. It seems too simple, too basic to be this important. They think, how can my favorite chair be the problem? They'd rather believe they just need a new stretch or a new supplement. But the Copenhagen study is irrefutable. The chronic day after day, hour after war positioning of your joints is far more impactful than a 10-minute exercise routine. The second mistake is going to the other extreme and trying to sit on a hard wooden stool all day. This isn't ideal either. The goal is support, not punishment. A firm, upright dining chair or a good office chair is the ideal. The key is maintaining that 90-90-90 posture where your joints are in a neutral, happy position. The progression plan here is a behavioral one. For the first week, your only job is awareness. Every time you sit down, notice your posture. Are you in the comfort trap? Don't judge, just notice. In week 2, you will modify your primary sitting spot. Get the cushions, make the change. It will feel strange and less comfortable at first. That's a good sign. It means you're using muscles that have been asleep. Stick with it. By month 2, this new supportive way of sitting should start to feel normal. Your body will begin to prefer it. You'll find that when you do sit in a bad chair at a friend's house, you feel the negative effects almost immediately. This is your body telling you it has relearned what good posture feels like. By breaking this one single habit, you remove the primary obstacle that was preventing your body from being healthy, strong, and mobile. You stop pouring gasoline on the fire. At the end of the day, these secrets don't work in isolation. They work synergistically, each one building upon the last to create a complete system for hip restoration and healthy aging. It starts by removing the primary aggressor, the comfort trap of bad sitting posture we revealed at number 1. By fixing your sitting environment, you stop the daily damage. Then, you incorporate movement, snacking, our number 5 tip, to break the dangerous cycle of prolonged stillness and keep your joints lubricated throughout the day. With the damage stopped and your body moving, you then use the glute bridge, our number 4 secret, to directly reverse the muscular imbalances caused by years of sitting, reawakening your powerful glute muscles. Once your muscles are firing correctly, you use the 90-90th hip switch, number 3, to restore the lost rotational mobility in the hip joint itself, breaking up adhesions and nourishing the cartilage. Finally, with your hips now strong and mobile, you use the active single-leg stance from number 2 to retrain your balance, sharpening your proprioception and building a resilient, stable foundation that protects you from devastating falls. Together, they don't just put a bandage on the problem, they rebuild your hip health from the ground up, giving you back the freedom and confidence you deserve. Now, we want to hear from you. Which of these secrets shocked you the most, and which one are you going to try first thing tomorrow morning? Was it the terrifying truth about your comfy couch, or the simple power of the glute bridge? Let us know in the comments below. Your journey and your commitment inspire our entire community. Don't share with us your experiences and opinions in the comments.